What happens if you mix British humor, a packed panel, and a great topic? The last panel of tonight happens. Please welcome Chair and moderator of the last panel, Shiraz Ahmed of Crypto Valley, and his panelists, Isabel Welpe, who will be with us remotely, Anna Graf from Avato Systems, Benjamin Horvath from BlockRocket, Dr. Annette Doms from xcircle.io, and Mark Henniges from Define. Enjoy.
So many ladies, huh? 3 on the panel. That's new.
A lot of people.
Let's get a bit closer together.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Great to see so many energetic faces in the crowd. You've survived thus far. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll try and make it as entertaining as possible. I mean, we have a very broad topic, Web3, NFTs, DAOs, Metaverse, and everything alike. We have great experts here as well, so we'll leave some time for you to be able to pick their brain a little bit as well. Maybe we can start a little bit today with just a little bit of kind of the Web3 experience, how you first got involved in the space. Very quick intro, because we only have 20 minutes, and then we can get started. So please.
Very quick. My name is Anna. I think many of you know me already. I work for Avato Systems, which is part of Bertelsmann. And yeah, I'm innovation lead Web3. So I try to connect all the dots, bring everything together that I've learned from the space. I was director NFT before that, so built from scratch to the end, also accepting fiat money. And I think that's basically it. We want to talk about something else. So Annette, please go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you. So I'm Annette Doms. So I'm an art historian with expertise in technology-based art. And in this field, so we have xCircle. xCircle is an immersive gallery where we can sell crypto art. So this is my experiences in Web3. And I'm also working for Ava. Ava is a pure digital influencer that you can book, and I'm also working for XR Explorer Schools to redesign school lessons with XR technologies.
Cool, my name is Benjamin. I'm leading a team at BlockRocket. We're an early stage VC firm for Web3 startups, so we invest around 200,000 checks in pre-seed and seed startups in the Web3 space. We try to be as early as possible, backing talented teams that build exciting use cases. I myself in the blockchain space since 4 years, give or take. Worked as a venture builder before, so I come especially from the startup side. And so I'm very obsessed with the idea of just building new products, exciting products to solve problems, and all about product market fit. Because at the end of the day, that's the biggest challenge that startups in early stage have. Be Web3 or no Web3.
All right, thank you. Mark Henniges is my name, a manager at Define. And I guess my first Web3 experience would be my first tokenization project about 5 years ago, where I wrote my first smart contract. And it was a lot of fun seeing what you can do with tokens that you cannot do with classical money, and what else you can do with tokenomics and so forth. And that got me into the space. And since then, I've been in projects around self-sovereign identity, stable coins, and obviously digital assets, and all the things about the pilot regime and the EWPG in Germany currently.
Wonderful, thank you. And I think we have Isabel with us as well.
Hi, thanks for having me. I think it's interesting. So I've attended this conference for many years since it existed, and it's a shift, right? I don't think you had Web3 in the previous conferences last year. So it's moved, right? Away from just crypto assets, broadened to Web3, which I think reflects the general sentiment in the economy as I perceive it. And I first got involved with Web3 on research projects on, tokens, DeFi, doing NFT Munich, little projects like that, and now mainly also DAOs.
Fantastic. So many different experts, a lot to talk about. So maybe we start on the NFT front. One of the parts was, is it just kind of this kind of like ape-like art, or is there actually some tangible use to it? I mean, maybe, and I don't know if you want to kind of start on this as you have like your own gallery and these things. I mean, maybe you want to give some context around kind of what brought you really, kind of made you so immersed into NFTs, and yeah, what sparked life to it.
Yeah, so NFTs, it's an evolution, it's not a revolution. So digital art exists since the 1960s. So, and the first discussions about blockchain and how to unicize and monetize digital artworks started in 2014. So an NFT is much more than just a JPEG. So it's really an extension of art. And if you look, for example, for Bored Apes, yeah, a good example, it's not just an expensive image. So what they did is really an ecosystem around, yeah. So if you have a Bored Ape, so it's a club ID, yeah, and then you can enter to a Bored Ape Yacht Club. Then you have the commercial rights as a license, so you can really. So that is why all the brands aped in and really make real money out of it, and then they created the Ape Coin, and with the Ape Coin you can enter the own metaverse, and yeah, so this is something that you can do in the art world as well. Yes, you can.
Yeah, you show it. I want to run around here because
Great.
This is like for the stream as well. I think it's kind of cool how you really make products out of it. And I was just gifted this by a very good friend who's also sitting here, and he's an ape owner, and he just didn't stop with owning the JPEG, you know, and having all these creators in the space who really think about what utility can you offer additionally with these things, and this is super good quality. I also have another hoodie from another company, and that is really bad quality. So you see that people who really look into quality are developing their own stuff now, and this is what brings us to the other topics of community and how it all serves into this creator economy and what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, it's wonderful to see like when people really kind of value something like their community, the ape, they might buy a better quality kind of hoodie to be able to give to their friends and loved ones alike. Maybe Isabel, we won't try to leave you out of the conversation a little bit here. We're just
okay. I'll make myself heard.
Like communities and these kind of things. With regards to DAOs, would you like to give maybe some layer of context here around the kind of like the governance layers and kind of how maybe NFTs can have some layer of involvement within DAOs?
Well, NFTs, tokens are, what orchestrates, what coordinates DAOs. And I mean, right now they're all over. We are doing research on classifying DAOs, and the next thing we'll do is link those classifications, and different governance mechanisms with their performance, or at least their development, and then we'll know more about which DAOs, have better chances of succeeding, because it's an exciting experiment, right? It's like democracy at work, and democracy we know has advantages, disadvantages. It's not suited for every type of decision, for every type of product or problem. But I think the opportunity to, and the interesting thing about Web3, and you can counter me if I'm wrong with that, but I think you can do everything, you can do with tokens and DAOs and blockchain, you can do everything without Web3, but at much higher transaction costs, with the exception of Bitcoin. I don't think you can do that without blockchain. So that's the exciting thing, that by introducing tokens, digital tokens and NFTs and DAOs, suddenly business models, business opportunities start to make economic sense that wouldn't make any sense without those instruments. And that's, I think, where we see the development, that suddenly people will realize, I always wanted to give my community a part in my, company or my organization, but I just didn't know how to do that, because forming a cooperative or a Verein, is a lot of paperwork, and I don't want to do that. So I think that's how they work together. One is not going to work without the other.
Fantastic, thank you. So you can do almost anything, which means to some extent, Benjamin, you can invest in almost anything. I mean, how has that been kind of this whole year, the ups and consequent downs? I mean, how has been investing in the Web3 space for you?
So I think we're still super early. I think no one really knows yet, including most investors and even some of the best companies, where the whole space will be moving, especially if you look, for example, NFT use cases. So it's the first 5% of adoption where there's still early experiments. I think hype cycles usually get built intellectually when there is suddenly a new technology that enables new use cases. The problem is there's a lot of blurriness. Most people, I think, actually don't even understand often what this technology actually brings along. And so then usually there's a hype cycle, there's a festival bust where everything kind of like breaks apart, 95%, and then it comes down to the real builders and the real companies that actually build sustainable use cases. And I think everyone is waiting for the next wave of what are actual, like, more sustainable NFT use cases. If you ask me as an investor, I would say that I mean, blockchain is basically, it's about databases, right? It's about like putting out the proof of ownership outside of a centralized database. And by this technology, for example, if you look into the gaming space, that's the space I'm most excited about, because the question if digital assets or digital goods are relevant or not has been answered since more than a decade if you look into the gaming space, because some of the best gaming companies in the world since a decade make almost $1 billion, like there's individual companies that make $1 billion revenues every year just with in-game purchases. But none of that has anything to do with crypto yet. But you could take what's already existing there and build it basically on crypto rails, and then you could say like, every in-game asset people already spend money for since a decade, you could attach to an NFT, and if it's attached to an NFT, then suddenly there's a lot of opportunities of what you can do with this asset that have not been available before. And I think that's where it gets exciting. So I'm not excited about the JPEGs discussions, because that's not sustainable for me. I think there's definitely an art market that's relevant, but the art market is a niche market. If you look at traditional art, it's not like a market that's going to conquer the entire world. It's like, yeah, it has a certain justification, and certain art projects, they will prevail. But now is the time for the next wave of NFT-related assets that actually need to have some sort of utility attached to it. And gaming, I think, is an ever-growing market. It's, I think, been growing 10–20% since 20 years. It's like growth rates like the Republic of China, basically. So it's massive. It's going to capture more and more of the entertainment sector in the future. And it has the advantage that all the data, you could already put it on-chain in the beginning. So for example, if you have NFT projects that try to connect like off-chain data in terms of real-world physical items, plus like some sort of NFT, you have much more friction in terms of actually making this happening compared to, oh, let's start in the gaming space where everything is already a digital experience anyways, and try to connect it to NFT use cases. And maybe last sentence, now is the time for investors to invest in infrastructure companies. So investors are excited about investing in companies that enable others to build the infrastructure that's necessary to come up with these use cases. And we're excited to see what happens the next 12 to 24 months then in terms of actual products. So.
Fantastic, thank you. And I mean, discussing this kind of next wave, right? As you mentioned, I mean, Mark, you were discussing just about like the metaverse, which to a certain extent seems a little bit like the next wave. There's a lot of big investment that's been happening there. You were talking just before with your keynote about digital identity and kind of the importance of that. I mean, the beauty of kind of having a Bored Ape NFTs, maybe you identify as an ape and you can buy your Bored Ape NFT and be in a metaverse as an ape. I mean, how do you see this next wave kind of coming about, and maybe a little bit more about this whole space?
Right, thank you. So if we talk about the metaverse as the next big wave coming, then obviously that is a new type of ecosystems, right? So there's many ecosystems in there, and the problem there is going to be standardization, interoperability. And for that, decentralized infrastructure is very important, right? Because you don't want to build something on one platform, then you don't get your assets out, you don't get your identity out, don't get your data out. So when we talk about decentralized identity, decentralized forms of tokens, of ownership proof, and so forth. That is, I think, the foundation and the basis for building the ecosystems we want to interact with tomorrow. And for that, we basically have to make sure, and I cannot say this often enough, that we adhere to standardization. And I don't mean standardization driven by centralized entities, standardization driven by communities. That is, I think, what is really important here, because otherwise we will fall into the same traps as we have with the internet, as I said in the keynote earlier, right? We basically will find ourselves in one platform with an identity attached to that platform, with assets attached to that platform, and we can't get them out, and they will not want to be interoperable with other platforms because they want to bind us to them. So we really should, when thinking about the metaverse, thinking about this next wave, thinking about tokens and representing ownership and so forth, really should make sure that we build that from the ground up in a decentralized way, such that it can be used anywhere.
Yeah, but looking from a corporate perspective now, I know that I might have a different view on this. When you talk about metaverse, many people confuse it with Web3 and NFTs. There are like parts of the metaverse that work totally without Web3. Like when we look at Roblox, we call it metaverse. It is one of the, when you come about gaming, it is one of the metaverses that works best. Also like Fortnite, all these immersive experiences that you already have. And then there are metaverses that work decentrally, like Decentraland. At the moment, we see that they are not working yet. But I think the bigger perspective is like looking into like 7 or 10 years and get the mass adoption until then. So we as a corporate, of course, we look at how can we get the mass market into this. And I think one of the factors is trust. We need to trust. There has been so much going on. Like, I think 2 weeks ago, Der Spiegel, one of the biggest German magazines, said it is just a scam again. And this brings so much, like, we have been working on this, like, no, we can build things on this. And then somebody says that, and people read it, and okay, I will not even look into this anymore. So let's make it as accessible as possible for the people. And I think that getting from, like, the centralized part to decentralization, we need some steps in between. I always say, you can't, when we talk to brands, you can't get from there to there. Some brands do this, but we need to take baby steps and really lead them there. And this is what we are looking into at the moment. If we talk about metaverse, because I would say metaverse is like NFTs was 2021. This year it's metaverse. Everybody wants to get in there. It's an infinite market. Brands are really, really interested, and they are so afraid of missing out. Like, when, oh my God, I missed out on Web 2. I have to do something about it. And getting this panic.
Who is so afraid of missing out? Sorry, I didn't get it. Who is so afraid of missing out?
Who is afraid?
Who's suffering? I think enterprises.
Who's suffering?
Okay, enterprises. Okay, you need to let me know which enterprises that are, because the ones I'm talking to, they're not afraid of missing out on Web3.
No, people are afraid of missing out, and this is why they get into this. They are afraid of missing out, and when I talk to enterprises, it's like we have to find a use case for this, and this is what most of them are lacking and are really looking for. They have all the innovation teams, but when I go to conferences, I speak a lot. It's like when I present a use case that is really hands-on, and this is what I like to do. They're all like, okay, we need something like this. We need some prototype that we can really implement into our company. And it's not the luxury brands. They have, like, we have seen Gucci, whatever, entering the space. But now look at the broader companies. Like Kaufland started with Animal Crossing, for example, which is definitely Web 2, not Web 3. And like this, we see more and more brands entering the space from a Web 2 perspective, but then trying to get into Web 3, like Starbucks, for example, with the loyalty program, which I think is super interesting because it adds on to something that already exists, but brings new community, new experiences, and I think we're talking about experiences in particular when we talk about Metaverse and Web 3.
Sorry.
Yeah, thanks. I wish they were more afraid, particularly the German ones. You know, I wish they were more afraid of missing out.
But maybe we can also think about digital identities, what you mentioned before. So have you ever been on a virtual stage at Snoop Dogg's virtual concert in the Sandbox, for example, if you are there? So there are so many people you are dancing with. This is civil society, yeah? So, and these can be anything, yeah? So it could be multiple identities. And so we have to really to look at people's provenance as well. Also, we have to question what happens if an avatar is kidnapped, yeah, and somebody is wanting money out of it. It already happens, yeah, but is there a meta police? What happens if the owner of an avatar is dying? Yeah? So what happens with the heritage? And will there be a coexistence in the metaverse, or will be there a graveyard, a big one? And it's also about interoperability between all the metaverses. And I'm really a big fan of the metaverse and what it can be, but we have to think about all these things behind.
If I just may, because you kind of jumped on something I said, and I think that's very, very true. We have to build things that work, and obviously there's a lot of platforms that work already today that do not use Web3 at all and do not use decentralized identity at all. But then you quickly get to the point where you say Facebook works, and that's a platform where I can connect with people, and that's a platform that provides me with a digital identity. And that's not the world I want to live in tomorrow, right? Tomorrow I want to be able to take my connections from Facebook and bring them to another platform. I want to take my identity out of there. I want to take perhaps I purchased goods on Facebook or some other platform, and I want to be able to use them somewhere else. Perhaps I buy digital art, and I want to hang that painting somewhere in an online game on my wall in my virtual house. So I think to connect all these things, yes, we can build that in a way that it works, even with centralized infrastructure, but I think if we build it or design it from the ground up using decentralized infrastructure, and especially perhaps open blockchain infrastructure, then it can work more smoothly, and people like me, I cannot speak for everyone, but people like me would feel more comfortable with that.
But you also have a lot of responsibility. This is what comes with really living in a decentralized world.
Right, a very good point. Yes, of course. I mean, ultimately, I don't believe that we will all have our own hardware wallets at home and we will live in a purely decentralized space. Companies, enterprises, they do not want to run nodes. We see that, right? They rely on platforms that do that for them. I don't want to have my private key at home under my pillow. Of course, there will be intermediaries still involved, but we will see a space, I truly believe that we will see a space that is more fragmented in a positive way. There will be players in the market that will have a dedicated service, and there will be a business case for that service, and then it will stop, and it will not be a platform like Facebook that does everything. That's what I hope to see.
I totally hope for this vision to become true.
Let's
I
hope
think
together.
we're united here
Me
in our minds with that.
Thank you.
So you asked about use cases, right? And how it all works together is like the title of the session. So I think, look at my own industry, university teaching. I think there you will see a different kind of learning, learn to earn, DAOs that, essentially incentivize actual learning, because how does learning work today? You pay the educators, like you pay the university for executive courses, you pay maybe a consultant, etc. But it's not sure that, the problem got solved or the person really learned something. And now that since Web 2, knowledge is available, right? You can learn anything really online by teaching yourself. And now I think we'll see, more models for, corporate training or even education where you pay people for actually acquiring a skill, giving financial incentives. And when the metaverse has, improved, and I think it's very, it's very flat right now, right? The processing capability is not really there, and you have to be at a stationary PC. You can't do it mobile yet. But when it has evolved, I think the metaverse will, you'll have quests, you'll be trained. Companies in the metaverse will, as an applicant, they'll send you on a quest to learn about the company. They'll also learn about you, how you solve problems, etc. So I think that's how it'll come together. You'll get tokens of companies if you fill out an application form, if you refer them, if you take a competence test. The possibilities are really, really endless, I think. I think
that this proof of concept, by the way, Isabel, I think this proof of concept is something that really works. We set this up in Hamburg for the Hafengeburtstag, and it worked so well. So this is really cool. And I think for education...
I'd like to hear about that. Please let me know if I can look it up somewhere. That sounds interesting.
Sure, I will send you a link.
Yeah. But what are everyone's thoughts on the metaverse? I mean, right now,
But maybe we have to differentiate.
Virtual glasses, it's very flat, isn't it?
I think actually, so I'm a gamer. I'm 30 now, so I'm still quite between two generations, and I grew up with video games, and many of my friends did. And I'm very biased here, but I would say it's hard, I think, to understand what a metaverse is about if you don't have any exposure if you did not have any exposure to gaming before. Again, I'm biased. I'm an early stage investor. Our main challenge we see in the world for any innovation that's being built is product market fit. And I think it's not talked enough about, and it's kind of underappreciated of how hard it actually is to achieve product market fit as a company, to actually build something that people truly and consistently and daily and repeatedly in a exponentially growing way want, versus what people find interesting to experiment with. And I think this is why these times of innovations are always confusing, because everyone is like, oh yeah, I have all these opportunities of trying out certain stuff, but the real question is, what if it is repeatable, and what do people actually want to do? And if you come from the gaming perspective, it's a market that exists since decades. It's a market that has super strong product market fit since decades. And Metaverse, I mean, looks and feels like gaming for anyone who has gaming experience. So I think it helps to, first of all, try to look at it more from a gaming perspective and already look into the gaming industry and like see like what actually works and what doesn't. So for example, I think any gamer would be highly critical of looking at Decentraland because it's an interesting platform, but it doesn't seem to be a use case people are really excited about on daily levels. They don't come back voluntarily. We talk about, for example, these land sales for like NFTs, where projects try to pre-finance getting investments by like selling land plots, for example. You know what no one talks about? Like, for example, there's a game called Grand Theft Auto, like GTA. They make $1 billion revenue every year in-game purchases since a decade. Like, every single gamer in the world knows what this game is. No one talks about GTA 6, comes out in 2 years. It's gonna be like one of the biggest hits in the gaming industries ever when it comes out, most likely. And the most successful project I would see today that should do an NFT land drop is actually GTA 6 and the game studio Rockstar Games. If they would do a land plot for the next online map of the next game, this would be like, it's a money printing machine, basically. And it would also make sense because if you play games like GTA, for example, you play in a virtual city every day with thousands of people online out of fun. People play this game because they want to, not because there's any incentive to make money, to enjoy the experience. If they would actually sell the land plots there to companies, as in, hey, like there's thousands of people every day at this land plot who will like come by to do whatever in the game. Do you want to buy it and actually run advertisements on it? That would actually make a lot of sense.
But do you think they will do it?
I mean, we talk to a lot of companies in the gaming space, so we know that top executives from gaming companies, they all think and they all talk about that.
And do you think they need tokens to do that? It's a centralized games, one platform?
Yeah, the thing is, so I think so in the gaming industry, for example, there's an area called like modding communities. So the idea is that like they make $1 billion with sales every year for in-game purchases, right? So in this case, it's cars, it's weapons, it's clothes, because the games are based on these types of assets. And the game developer like launches all of these assets themselves. They have their own graphic designers and they launch it all themselves. But actually content is really poor because they don't have that much resource from a centralized perspective to publish all these assets. So there is something called modding communities in gaming, which also exists in more decades, which is basically people who in their free time for free create assets in graphic design or whatever for the games and upload them online for free. So if the game studios would actually start to open marketplaces where content creators could actually like sell their assets in their stores and they would just take a transaction fee, then the whole market would be significantly bigger. And I'm pretty certain that some game studios will start doing this at some point. And once they start doing it, everyone else has to follow, because otherwise they get out-competed with the richness of content of one particular game and everyone else needs to follow suit.
But then again, we have the problem of standardization because the game has to be able to interpret that thing that you build for that game, right? And if you build it for GTA, then another game might not understand it because they have a different engine.
Isn't this what Unreal is aiming at, by the way? This is what Unreal, why they are growing so fast. They are building kind of the basic for the metaverse. They get more and more developers involved into the space. So I think this is what they're doing very well, also Unity.
But it doesn't even need to be cross-compatible in the beginning. It's just like one game competing versus another one, because they're competing for gamers' times. Like, if you have 5 hours of gaming, do you want to spend it in this ecosystem versus this ecosystem? So they will spend it in the ones that offer them the most fun and the most content and the most entertainment.
We will most likely have to wrap it up there. You know, it's what they say, you bring a great bunch of people together and the moderator just has to spark the fire and it'll go running all night. But
you can connect after, like you find us on LinkedIn, I think all of us, so you can connect after and we can follow up on this discussion.
yes, but I hope it was entertaining for everyone.
GTA.
Yes, thank you.